Hi, welcome back to Paul's Stuff. This is my YouTube channel where I talk about all the stuff I love, lots of Star Wars, lots of lightsabers, and today is about lightsabers, but I want to talk about something a little bit different today. So in most of my stuff on sabers is reviews of Xenopixel sabers, and I often mention customizing the Xenopixel board with custom sound fonts and custom sounds and blade styles and colours and things. And I thought it'd be good today to do a little video showing you a little bit more how to do that. Maybe trying to demystify it a little bit so that you have a little bit more confidence in having a go yourself at customising your Xenopixel. So how do we do that? Well, the first thing we need to do is to access our SD card. I'm going to use this Mace Windu hilt to show you how to do that in the first instance. I've got some others as well because not all hilts are the same in terms of how you can get access to things. But most of the custom hilts that you'll find and some of the character sabers like this Mace Windu, accessing everything is as simple as screwing off the bottom half of the lightsaber, and there you have your battery and your SD card. Now on some of these LGT sabers there is an extra step to this. So with this Graflex, for example, there's a cover over the core which just simply screws off. So you screw off the end of the saber, screw off the cover, and then you've got access to everything as before. I will just show you on these two. This Mace Windu on the top has the latest style Xenopixel board with the SD card under a little cradle in the middle, and the Graflex on the bottom has the older style board which has a push-in connector for the SD card on one end of the board. It's usually on the speaker end. Okay, so once we've got access to that, first thing to do is to remove the battery. So you're going to take the battery out of the saber. I'm just going to get rid of this Graflex so it's not in my way. So you take the battery out, and then with these newer style boards, the little clip slides usually towards the hilt end. Then it will pop up. You just remove the clip off of the top and the SD card will just drop free. And you're ready to go and plug it into your computer and get customising. Now to put it back, you just lay the SD card on the connector. Do need to be careful because there are some little connectors there that could get bent and are difficult to get back into place if you do. It will only sit one way because the SD card is keyed so that it only sits flat one way. Then you pull the cradle back down, push it down and slide it towards the speaker end and everything's back in. We pop our battery back in. Really important with Xenopixels that you put the battery in the right way round. If you don't, you will fry the board. How do I know that? I've fried two Xenopixel boards putting the batteries in the wrong way round. It's an expensive and time-consuming process to solder a new board in. You really don't want to do it. So the battery has a positive, that's the little button terminal, and the big flat end is the negative. The negative on most of these LGT sabers is at the speaker end. It confuses me sometimes because usually you have a spring clip on back on the flat end and a button end on the positive end. These have got it the other way around. So the negative is at the speaker end, and it's a big round raised connector, and then there's a little spring flap at the other end. That's the positive. So when you put the battery back in, please, please, please make sure you put it in the right way round. And with the battery in, we should have sometimes you'll find on these the battery clips need a little tweak. So usually the positive just needs a little stretch out, just so that it makes contact with the little button that's in here. If you put your battery back in and it doesn't work, that's probably what it is. There we go. Back to a working saber. So we'll put that on one side for a moment. Because these LGT hilts aren't all like this, they do get more complex. So I'm going to move now to this Anakin episode 3. So I would say this is kind of intermediate difficulty for accessing the battery and the SD card. So we've got one of the older style boards here with the SD card slotted into the end of the board, and the battery, but we can't take the battery out because half of it is still in the saber. So we can either take the entire core out, which means dismantling the rest of the saber, or we can isolate the battery. So what I use for this is a guitar pick. Common or garden guitar pick, the slightly stiffer ones are better. For this, buy them for pennies on Amazon, and all you do is slide that in between the battery and its connector, and what that does is cut the battery connection to the board. So now this saber won't turn on. Then with these older style SD cards, you just pull the SD card, not always as easy as I make it sound. You can pull the SD card out of its connector, and again you're ready to go to the computer and customize. So when we come back, you just position the SD card, slide it back in to your board, hold your battery and pull out guitar pick and working saber again. So I would say that's kind of intermediate accessing your SD card and battery. Now they do get more difficult than that. I'm going to move to this episode 3 Obi-Wan, and if we unscrew the bottom end of it, just the pommel comes off. You can access the charging port to charge the battery, but you can't actually see the battery or the SD card. And even if we take the other end off, we can see the other end of the core, we still can't see the SD card or the battery. So unfortunately with something like this, there's no other option but to fully dismantle the lightsaber and take the core out completely. That's the only way you're going to get to the SD card and the battery on a saber like that. So yeah, that's how you get into these sabers to be able to access your SD card. Once you've got your SD card out, you need to plug it into your computer. Now, I'm going to be using a Mac today, but all of these things equally apply to using a PC. So let's shift across to the computer and we'll have a look at how to change sound fonts, how to add sound fonts, how to change, customize sound files, how to customize blades on your Xenopixel sound card, on your Xenopixel SD card. Okay, away to the computer we go. Okay, so here we are in front of the computer. Now I'm working from files that are already on my computer, but when you plug in your SD card into an SD card reader on your computer from your Xenopixel Saber, then when you open the SD card, this is the sort of thing that you will see. I'm working on a Mac. It's very similar on a PC. So you have all these folders with numbers on them. I'll just bring the cursor in here. So you have all these numbers with folders with numbers on them. Those are the font folders. So on this particular SD card, which is set up with the standard LGT fonts that come with Xenopixel Sabers. This is the latest set. There are 34 sound fonts on there. Each sound font has its own numbered folder. And then we have a separate folder here at the bottom called Set. And that's where all of the standard sound files for functions on the Saber, things like the volume, charging, turning on, turning off, they're all held in there. And also in there you'll find the config file, which is where you go to to alter all of the parameters on your Xenopixel Saber for each font. For the Saber generally, and some of the blade settings specifically for each font. So we'll go into one of the sound folders first. We'll go into number 1. And when you get into there, this is the sort of thing that you'll see. Now actually on these setups, some of these are a little bit superfluous. They're from older versions of the board. These ones that are marked begin drag, begin lock, begin melt, those don't get used anymore. And then we've got blaster, which is the blaster block. You can have as many of those in here as you want. Clash is the sound for the clash. So we'll just have a look at some of these as we go through. So that's blaster block sound. I'll have a look at the clash sound. And these are the files that you would change if you want to change any of these. They're pretty self-explanatory because the names tell you what they are. These ones, end drag, end lock, end melt, again are not needed. You can work the font completely adequately without them. As far as I'm aware, they don't play anymore. They're just left in there as kind of artifacts of previous versions of the board. A font, this is the one that will give you the name of the font.
The Chosen.
So this is the Chosen.
The Chosen.
You'll notice also that they have the name and then they have a number after them. The number gives the board the order in which it will play those. So with the blasters up here at the top, it'll play this one first, and then it'll play Blaster 2, and then it'll play Blaster 3, and then Blaster 4, and then it'll go back to Blaster 1. Force. Now, on these fonts, that's set up with a force sound. These are the ones on my customized fonts, and we'll have a look at one of those in a bit, where I change the force sounds for quotes from the character. Then we have the hum. This is the hum that is the general hum for the saber. In is the retraction sound. Lock is the lock up sound. Melt is the tip drag sound. Out is the ignition sound. And again, if you've got multiple of these, they'll work in the order that they're numbered. So this one, then number 2 will play, then number 3, then number 4, and then it will go back to number 1. Spin is another of the sound files in here that doesn't actually do anything anymore, as is stab. Swing and it is used. This is the sound that will play when you swing the saber about. So various versions of that. Then you've got these swing H and swing L. These are the accent sounds for the swings. You get a feel for those. They've also started to add a little bit of information about the font in this text file at the end. So this is Chosen. It's an Anakin inspired font. It's called the Chosen, Anakin inspired font, and it's by Repulse Collectibles. So there's a little bit of information in each of the font folders that you get with an LGT Xenopixel now. Now I'm going to go into 15 because this has some additional tracks. So this is the double agent font on the list of fonts that come on the Xenopixel. Now this additionally has tracks, track 1 and track 2, and these are music files. There's only 2 sound fonts from the current LGT lineup that have music files in them. That's this one, 15 double agent, and the other one is 34 Moonfield. And what these are music tracks. So I'll play you a little snippet of this. Okay, so you get the idea. It plays music. The way you access that on the saber is with the blade off. You twist, hold the blade upright and twist clockwise, and it will play a music track, and it will keep playing that. You can turn the saber on. All the saber sounds play with the music. Once you turn the saber back off, if you hold it upright and twist it clockwise again, that will stop the sound. And if you twist it clockwise again, it will play the next track, and then it will stop the next track. And then when it gets to the end of the tracks, it will go back to the first track. So that's how you get the music on a Xenopixel. But you do need to have these track files in the font folder in order to get that music. Again, doesn't have to be music. You could put any sort of sounds that you wanted in here. I've seen some sound files that have like background atmospheric tracks for, say, like Dagobah or Hoth. They can go in here as well, and you can turn that on. You've got all the background sounds going. You can turn your lightsaber on, have all the background sounds going in the background as well. So these are quite nice. They're usable, and it's really a little bit of a shame that LGT haven't put more soundtracks in more of the fonts on their sabers, given how many fonts there are on their sabers. So that's the sound font folders, and they're the ones that are numbered. Let's have a look at the set folder. So this is where you will find all of the sort of system sounds. Again, not all of them are used now because the system has moved on and been updated. So there are some other sound files in here that are no longer used. But you can see what you've got here. You've got your low battery warning sound.
Low battery, please recharge.
You've got your low volume sound. You've got your volume sound setups, so loud volume, no volume, and there's a mute one somewhere.
Volume low.
So you get the idea. Power on.
Power on.
That's one of the ones that I changed to a custom power on sound because I didn't like the voice. I wanted it to sound like a lightsaber powering on. Power off. Likewise, this is the standard
power
one.
Power off.
And I've put a custom one on. So you can see all these sound files relate to items that are in the menus on the saber itself. The blade ones, I believe,
broken ignition.
It relate to the ignition sounds.
Stack ignition. Photon ignition.
So you've got all of those on there as well. The file we're really interested in most in this folder though is this one over here. This is the config. So when you open that, it should open in any sort of text reader. So we'll open it up and we'll size the window out a little bit. Sorry. So it can be a little bit confusing because they've tried to help us by adding descriptions of everything that's here, but actually they get in the way a little bit. We've got a little warning at the top to copy this file before you make any changes to it. Then we've got anything after that that has a little hash mark by it is a description. So this is telling you that you can alter the main blade length. This one, it says pixel number, that's the blade length. This one's set to 114, that's equivalent to a 32-inch blade. A 36-inch blade is 132. The 28-inch blade that comes with the Yoda saber, that's 99. And then we've got the side blade length. So this is, if you've got a crossguard saber, you can have side blades on. This relates to that. This is allowing you to adjust the number of pixels in those. Generally, you leave them longer so that the whole thing lights up anyway. This number is important for the tip drag, because if you've got a 32-inch blade and it's set to 36 inches, you won't see the tip drag. So that's why that one's in there, and that's important. Then we've got power on and power off times. These are in milliseconds. So this is how long you have to press the button in order for the saber to power on. Not to turn the blade on, this is to turn on the power on the blade. And likewise, the length of time that you need to turn off the saber as well. So with the blade ignited, if you press and hold the button for 10,000 milliseconds, that's 10 seconds, it will turn off. It will give you that power off sound. The next is preons. This sets, I don't understand fully preons on the Xenopixel. I'm just getting to grips with those, but this sets the time for those preons. I don't understand what the pre-offs are either. Don't tend to use those myself. If a font comes with them, I just leave them as they are. And with the side blades, you can you can adjust the delay on them as well. So if you look at Kylo Ren's lightsaber, the main blade ignites, and then a few milliseconds afterwards the side blades come out. You can do that on the Xenopixel as well, and this is where you set the delay time. So at the moment this is set for those side blades to ignite 200 milliseconds after the main blade. And we've got a couple of volume settings. I don't really play with these. You've got warnings here that if you go with this second one, if you go over 4,500, you may damage the speaker. I usually leave mine set to around 4,300, 4,500 for that setting, and the 7,500 on this one seems fine. You can go up, but past 7,500 I haven't really noticed that it makes that much difference. Sensitivity of the clash, so this is how sensitive how hard you have to hit the blade in order for the clash to happen. It's set to 1.5. Some people find that a little bit sensitive. It's fine for what I use it for. I don't do that, but if you find the clash is going off when you don't want it to, you might want to increase that number a little bit. The higher you put it, the less sensitive it is. The smaller the number you use, the less sensitive it is. Then we're into the gesture controls. So this first one is stabbing on, and all of these are number controlled. So 1 is on, 0 is off. So you can see on this one I've got the stab power on is set to off, stab power off is set to off. I don't use stab on, stab off. Twist on, twist off, that's on mine because that is the one that I use. And then you can adjust the sensitivity here. It tells you the minimum is 60, currently set to 400. That's where it comes set straight from the factory, and I don't play with that. Then we've got the swing on, swing off. As you can see, you only have swing on this, so why they put swing off I don't know. Again, I don't have that on, but you can have it on, and you can adjust the sensitivity of that as well. Now all of these next notes relate to the blade settings, and that's what this list here, this long list. Now you can see there are 34 of them, and that relates to the 34 sound font folders that are on the card as well. So these control all the blade settings for that particular sound font. So this is color 1. This relates to the number 1 folder. So that was the Chosen, I believe, when we looked at it. So these are the font settings for the Chosen. The first 3 that are in brackets, this is the blade color. Blade colors on NeoPixel sabers are created by using red, green and blue lights, and these numbers relate to red, green and blue. So the Chosen is an Anakin inspired font, so no surprises here. The only one of these that is lit is the blue one, and 255 is the maximum number that you can go up to. So 0 means none of that colour, 255 means the maximum of that colour. In this case that's blue, red, green, blue. The next setting is the blade style, or blade effect rather. So again, these are numbered, and if you look up here, you can see it says default light effect of each font. So 0 is the fire blade, steady blade is 1, which is what this one is set to. Then we've got pulse blade 2, rainbow blade 3, candy blade 4, unstable blade 5 and crack blade 6. So you can change this first number from 0 to 6, and depending on what you change it to, you'll get a different blade effect. The next number is the ignition time. So this is the time that it takes the LEDs to ignite from the hilt to the tip of the blade, and this is again is in milliseconds. So this one is set for 500 milliseconds. It will take 500 milliseconds for the blade to go from the hilt to the tip of the blade. The next one is the retraction time, and this one is then set for 1000 milliseconds. So this means when you turn the saber off, it will take 1000 milliseconds for the blade to go from the tip of the blade all the way down to the hilt. So ignition time, retraction time. And the last one is the blade style setting. This is where you can change the ignition type. So if you have it set to 0 as it is here, that's a standard blade, so that's a standard ignition, comes straight out, comes straight down. But as you know, on these you have all sorts of different ignition styles and blade styles as well. There's a couple of blade styles on here. So one is the blaster blade, so that's where when you turn the saber on there is no ignition at all, and you get a blaster bolt shoot along the blade when you press the button. Ghost blade is the blade style where when you turn it on, if the hilt is still, there's no light, and the light increases and brightens as you move the blade around. And then it says here you've got prions 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9. These are the different ignition styles, which are just bear with me a second, just going to look them up for you. So the ignition styles are 3 is broken ignition, 4 is warp ignition, 5 is stack ignition, 6 is phaser ignition, 7 is photon ignition, 8 is scavenger ignition, and 9 is hunter ignition. Now you can get to any of these on the saber itself using the saber menus. How to do that is all in the manuals that come with these sabers. Basically, if you've got one of the buttons that flashes, you hold the button down for 3 flashes and it will take you in and change these parameters for you. But you can set them where you want the blade to be when you first turn it on, here. So yeah, each of these lines of settings relates to a different font. Now if you do go in on the saber and change these settings, it will create a little config file for that folder in the sound folder, and these will no longer apply. Whatever you change on there, that will then be the default for that font. So if you know what you want on that font, it's best to change it here and then just keep out of those menus on the Saber. So that's our config file. Just take you into one of my my custom files. There we go. We'll go into this is my Anakin Episode 2 Lightsaber SD card setup. So you can see there's a lot less fonts here. I've only got 3. If we go into one of those font folders, you can see I've stripped out all of the files that it doesn't need. So this is literally now just the files that it needs. And I've replaced the force files with...
You fell into that nightmare, Master,
quotes
and I rescued you, remember?
From the character from this movie. You also notice I've got 6 soundtracks on here. I like to put soundtracks on that relate again to scenes in the movie. So these will all be Episode 2 soundtracks. Apart from the first one is always that classic Star Wars theme tune. I won't play you a bit of that, but I'll play you a bit of track 2. Okay, you get the idea. They're tracks that relate to the movie that this hilt comes from. And then in the set folder, haven't taken the extra files out of here yet, but I have changed some things like power on. So instead of it saying power on, it now plays that sound, and power off plays that sound instead. And the config file, as you can see, I've stripped out all of the descriptions, so I've now just got the lines in that config file that actually relate to controlling the saber. Only 3 of the blade settings there now, and they're all quite similar, same color. Some of them have got the pulsing blade, and this bottom one's got the standard blade, and this one's got a little bit longer retraction time on it. So yeah, there we go. That's one of my custom setups. So I do also keep files of what's on each of my sabers. So this is my list. I keep a list of this is the saber. So this is Anakin Skywalker Episode 2 character saber. It has 36-inch blade, which is 7/8 inch diameter, and then these are the sound fonts that are on that saber. Anakin Skywalker Episode 3 character, 36-inch blade, 7/8, and again the fonts. Darth Maul Episode 1 character hilt, 32-inch blades, 1 inch, and then the fonts that are on there. You get the idea, and I have this for all of the hilts that I have. This is a list. I'll leave this up in case anybody wants to read this. This is the latest font list for Xenopixel sabers. So when you buy a Xenopixel saber, I buy all of mine from Padawan Outpost, so this is what comes on those. This is the current lineup. So this is the folder number, the name of the font, the character that this font relates to, and the color of the blade. I'll leave that up there in case anyone wants to read through that. You can pause the video and have a read of that. And then the last thing I have here is a list of all the config settings, just to remind myself. So I've got a list of the blade lengths. So for a 36-inch blade, 132, 32-inch blade, 114, 28-inch blade, 99. Then my preferred volume settings, the general settings that I use for different characters, any blade settings that I've changed on the standard ones, and then the blade effects, number codes, and the blade codes for blade styles. And then if you're using a Mac, it does put some hidden folders onto the SD card, which can mess with how it works. So if you press Shift Command full stop on on the SD card window, when you've got it open on a Mac, that will show you all the hidden folders as well, and you can deal with those so that it works properly. So I think that's everything that we need to go through on here. I will just show you some font downloads. So most of my fonts come from KSith and Kyberphoic. So when you get a KSith font, it comes in a folder like this. This is the What Remains. This is Darth Vader font from the Kenobi series. And when you open it up, you've got different board versions. So CFX boards, Profi boards, Verso boards, Xenopixel boards. So this is the one I use for Xenopixels. You go into there, it's just a folder full of the sound fonts. You copy those, paste them into a folder, number the folder, and stick it onto your SD card. And you should have everything you need to go from that. Then you have an extras folder. This is some different sound fonts, sound files that you can use. There's a folder full of quotes. These are all Darth Vader quotes from the Kenobi series, and tracks is music tracks. So if you want to add quotes instead of Force, you just take this quote, rename it Force 1, and it will play that quote. And similarly with the tracks, you do need to number these with brackets around the numbers for Xenopixel. So it needs to be track, space, open brackets, 1, close brackets. I'll just show you quickly on here what it should look like for a Xenopixel. So space. So that's the Xenopixel naming format for soundtracks. If you then dump those into your font folder, and it will play those music files. Kyberphoic, very similar. When you order a Kyberphoic font, you'll get one of these RTF files that sends you to where the download is. I just keep those so that if I ever want to re-download them, I can. This is the A New Hope training. So we've got A New Hope version 1, and then within that we've got fonts for CFX, Profi and Verso. They do now also come in Xeno. I think the version 2 of this, yeah, we've got A New Hope Graphics. No, this hasn't got it in. Let's find one that's got the Xenopixel in it as well. Annie 3 I think has. So you've got an extras folder, music, quotes, self-explanatory. Again, you need to rename these: track, space, open brackets, 1, close brackets, etc. if you want to use those. Quotes again, Anakin quotes, and we've got Vader quotes because obviously Anakin becomes Vader. And then I believe in this one, there we go, we've got sound fonts for Asteria, CFX of Golden Harvest, Profi and Verso, and Xenopixel. So again, if you've got a Xenopixel, just copy these into a folder, number the folder, dump them on the Saber, make sure the config file is set to recognize that folder. So if you were adding this to the existing files on an LGT Xenopixel, the next folder number would be 35. So you would put these into a folder numbered 35, add a line on that config file that gives you the blade styles and things for folder 35, and save all of that onto the SD card, and you're good to go. Put the SD card back in, put the battery back in, and you're good to go. So I think that covers just about everything on the computer side of Xenopixel customization. So you covered all of the things that you can do on here. Hopefully you'll find that helpful. I'm going to cut from here now and we'll go back to the rest of the video. Okay, so here we are back. We've had a look on the computer at what's on the SD card, how to change things, all of the sound files that the Xenopixel uses are .wav files, .wav files. You do need to number them or name them in the way that Xenopixel names them. You'll see that on the video from where I open one of the sound font files. You'll see all the different names that you use for various sounds that are on the Saber. If you are using a Mac, I think I mentioned on the computer video section that you can run into problems with Macs putting hidden files onto the SD card. But I mentioned on there that if there's a certain key sequence that you can press, and that will show you all of those hidden files and you can deal with them. Honestly, I don't really end up with a problem with that. I think where it comes in, it stops the fonts from cycling through themselves continuously, but you can go backwards and forwards through the fonts on a Xenopixel. If you press and hold the button for 4 seconds, it will go forwards through the fonts, and with the blade off, if you hold the hilt down and twist it counterclockwise, it will go through the fonts backwards. So you can go through those fonts forwards and backwards even if it's not cycling through them. And in fact, it's quicker to do it that way. If you want to go back to a font, you don't have to cycle all the way through until you get back to it. Yeah, so I hope you found this video interesting, and I hope you found it useful, and I hope you have fun having a go at customizing your Xenopixel. It really is very, very easy. Once you get used to it, there's lots of things you can do with them. And yeah, I hope you have fun with yours. So if you have liked the video, please give it a like, and consider subscribing to the channel if you're not already. If you tick on the little bell icon, that will give you notifications when there's new content on the channel. I hope you've enjoyed it. There'll be links in the description to where I buy my sabers. It's generally Padawan Outpost. There's links there to all sorts of saber parts retailers, and there's also links to my Facebook. There's a link to the Facebook page for the costuming group that I work with. That's Vader's Raiders. Hello, any Raiders that are watching. So yeah, have a look at the text in the description as well. There's some handy links there. And yeah, really hope you're enjoying the channel. But for now, cheerio, and I'll see you later.